Peoples. So, yeah, this whole thing with T.I. and his son King really got me thinking about um how we grew up versus how our kids grow up. And um I've been on a number of parenting blogs and everything, and I'm realizing that we are basically old school parents raising new worldly kids. Um and by old school, I mean like we weren't raised by technology. Like we these kids, their world is technology. We rode bikes. We went outside. Like we played until the street lights came on, and even then, we was looking for some more time. We didn't shoot each other. We actually fought heads up, 1-on-1 in the front yard. Um, we wasn't picky when we knew we had our driver's license. We wasn't that era that wanted to tell our parents what kind of car we wanted to drive. We was that era that was actually thankful for any car we was allowed to drive, because you got to keep in mind back then most of the households only had one car. So if mama and daddy decided they wasn't doing nothing on a Saturday night, you was actually amped up because you was like, dang, I could probably get the car. These days kids pretty much tell you what they not about to be driving and what it is that they want. Like, what in the hell is really happening here? um I I mean, we lived in that era too, where our parents kept the gas money in the ashtray because it was cheaper then, along with the ducks that they was gonna smoke later. Some of y'all too new school to even understand what I just said. That's all right though. And the sad part about it is you'll get your kids your car these days and they bring it back on E and tell you they ain't had no money to put gas in your car, but then you get in the car, it smell like weed, and they Chipotle garbage is in there on the floor. Make it make sense. Now, another thing I'm having an issue with as I'm combing over all of this, because I've listened to so many opinions about T.I. and what type of parent he is and what him and Tiny did wrong and all this other stuff. And it's a whole lot of people in the comments. Some of them I notice, I'm like, that person don't even have no kids. Now, here's a little issue that I have with people who comment about how people should raise their kids that don't have kids. You're not experienced in this area. How are you speaking on parenting? And I already know it's going to be that one person out there who's going to feel as though they need to say something because they helped raise their sister, brother, cousin, niece, or nephew. And that's fine. But you have to understand that when a parent is actually pregnant and carrying that child, that's the first bond that they initially have with that child. When that child comes fresh out the womb, those two parents now have a physical, emotional connection with that child in that first encounter. And then there becomes a whole lot of firsts for those parents after that. You have to understand that obligation versus you developing a defense mechanism for this child, meaning you gonna defend this child come hell or high water, because that's how a lot of parents are about their kids. And they're that way because as a mother, you sitting there like, I carried this child, I went through a lot to get this child here, I'll be damned if I allow something to happen to them. Like, for some fathers, there's a switch that flips on that they now realize this kid needs me. I have to protect this kid. I have to provide for it. There still are some good fathers out there. I want you male bashing women to know that, okay? I'm not saying this any over here. That story for another day. But you cannot compare that feeling to obligation. And that's usually how people come to raising other people's kids, out of obligation. Something happened to the parent isn't fit. And now you're kind of, in a sense, trying to help bring this child along in the world. There's a huge difference versus you actually creating this life, carrying this life, birthing this life into the world. And so... Now, I know y'all know this about T.I. He seems to be pretty well versed in a lot of the things that he says politically, his worldviews, and how he speaks to social injustices against Black people and things like that. And there were two things that I really took away from him having to try to defend himself as a parent in all of this. One of the things he said is that time would be his son's teacher. Now, where I come from, when people say things like that, it's because your child is out here thinking that they too good to sit in prison. that there's a grown man somewhere who thinking he ain't gonna get caught while he out here taking these penitentiary chances. What that says is that some people have to serve time in order for them to be taught the things that they weren't trying to be taught. They weren't teachable on the outside, but they became teachable on the inside. The other thing that he said is that he had expressed to his son that when you get out there in grown man business, my man said grown man business, and things don't go the way you thought, you're going to learn real quick what adversity is. Now, here's the thing with that. These kids these days, they don't touch adversity. Why? Because we are the parents too busy trying to give our kids everything that we never had. Now, prior to the whole thing where the son got arrested and all this other stuff, because that actually came after the whole Waffle House thing, they were actually talking about how he had graduated at the age of 17 with honors. Now, I'm going to commend T.I. and Tiny for this, because the boy became a rapper and an influencer and still graduated high school with honors. That takes a hell of a support system, and somewhere in there in that household, it was made known what the expectations were in order for you to maintain all of this. I'm just saying. Those are not things that you can become and do in the midst of chaos. So there had to be some type of order about that household, and the expectations were known. That's just my thought on that. Where I come from, 14, 15-year-olds, a lot of them not in school. They come from broken homes, where there aren't any parents. And this was how it was when I was growing up. It's just worse now because you have a lot of them out here who are raping kids. They raping women. They shooting they other kids. Like, it's so much going on that it's like, what has happened to the world in itself? So for a black man to get his black son through high school, nevertheless with everything that his son has achieved, but for a black man to get his black son through high school, to me, is commendable. I think that a lot of what has gone wrong with children in general, young adults, a lot of what has gone wrong is that technology is not really being utilized for what technology could be utilized for. Our kids are tech kids. We were not tech kids when we grew up. And a lot of what is happening is that they spend a lot more time on social media than they do their academics. And we also have to understand that social media not just does a job at affirming our children, but it also feeds egos in a sense. So now you're stuck with this kid who is out here behaving in a way that's conforming to what the world expects for them to behave like. Because they've got the views, they've got the likes, they've got the shares, and all of a sudden they're not the kid that you raised. And what happens is we're somewhere sitting telling ourselves, this is not my child. I raised this child better than that. Now, with the whole T.I. and King thing, it's enhanced because they are celebrities. It's all over the place because they're celebrities. This is actually normal in most black communities where you see this kind of behavior on social media because your child is trying to make a name for themselves because the world is either feeding their ego or they're behaving in an attention-seeking way on social media for people to affirm them. So this isn't new. That what I was reading and everything, this is just because it's a celebrity. But I saw a lot of what we already deal with in regular households in what's happening with T.I. and King. And I think that a lot of this is that T.I. did what a lot of us did. He started out raising a boy into a man, and he started with academics. We always push for our kids to do good in school because we want them to be somebody. And usually the expectation from generation to generation is for your kids' generation to be better than your generation. But what happens when your children start to conform to the world? And to me, it seems like it's a lot worse for celebrity children because there's so much going on with them. Sometimes they want a normal life. They see normal people on YouTube and and social media and things like that, and they want to be like them. They don't want all the hype that comes with their parents. And then you have those that want to be tough as how their parents used to be, because that's what built up their parents' reputation. The only difference is your parents' struggle look way different than the struggle you don't have these days. So now you're trying to build up some type of credit for a life you've never even had. I'm not gonna say I don't understand it, but once a child turns on a device and they can hit a button and all of a sudden they're in the world, if they're not right beside you, you don't know what's gonna happen. Because I know for a fact that my kids act different when they're with me versus when they're not with me. I see it on their social media, and my first thought is, baby, I know I ain't raised these heifers to act like that. That is my first thought. Call it what you want. Call me a bad parent, whatever it is. I know when they with me how they act. I know I expect nothing less than what it was that I taught them when they're out with me. But when they not with me, oh my Jesus. So we have to understand that as they get older and they start to conform to the world through technology, we're going to start to lose some type of control, because they're allowing their selves to be controlled by the world and not us. And you also have to keep in mind that they're trying to make a name for themselves out here in the world. And sometimes they conform to a negative behavior. And that negative behavior, in a sense, can crap on a parent's legacy. And I think that that's probably what has happened as far as T.I. goes, because he's came on social media a couple times actually trying to defend his parenting. Because these people are coming for his parenting. I don't see how you come for his parenting when this boy graduated early with honors. He became a rapper and an influencer, all while still maintaining school. I don't see that as bad parenting. Now, what I do see is that he is one of the kids that's growing up in a tech world today who takes advantage of what people can see in them, or the fact that they don't have to be who their parents want them to be in front of a camera. That's what I see. So, and King has definitely made a name for himself. And we also have to keep in mind that he's been grown since been grown. He was taught to be a rapper. He comes from a whole family of musicians and everything. So you got to expect for him to not know how to behave in certain instances because of his age. But you also have to understand that he gonna know how to get out here and get this paper. I didn't like the whole Waffle House thing. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I didn't like the fact that the cook felt as though he had to entertain this boy, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I wanted to take off my belt and teach him a lesson. Negro, respect your elders. Like, you don't go flashing the money that you did made out here. That's not professional at all. You flashing the money and telling the man you make more money than he does. Like, I just felt as though it was disrespectful to those of us out here who have to work every day to achieve a quarter of what some of these celebrities have achieved. And you want to minimize my hustle because you was handed yours. No, that's not how that goes. So I think what made the T.I. and King thing messy is T.I. having to find himself explaining what his son did, which is a lot of us as parents. So I need for parents to understand that we can't be with our kids 24/7. When they reach a certain age, technology plays a major part, and so does the world. We have to understand that we cannot beat up ourselves as parents when our kids start to conform to the world and not utilize the things that we've taught them. I'm speaking from personal experience. I know how my kids are outside my house. And at the same time, all I can do is make sure that they understand that there are certain laws you cannot break out here, and there are certain things that you just absolutely cannot do. I love you all, and I will see you next video.